So thank you very much, Abdul, for giving us your time today. As you know, we're going to talk a wee bit about Morgan Goodwin as a company and your involvement in the research and development tax space. So I suppose just tell us a wee bit about Morgan Goodwin to begin with.
Yeah, well, Morgan Goodwin's a software development consultancy in many ways. We do bring our own products to market. However, we also be hired as consultants and software developments for quite a number of large blue chip companies as well. And we've done a number of exciting, innovative products that are bringing a lot of benefit to companies around the world.
Perfect. So you've worked with SMEs and blue chips. Projects completely vary. Maybe this would be a good time to sort of touch on the R&D aspects. Yeah. Where have you gotten involved there?
Yeah, so I guess one of many of the bigger projects that we do are around the international trade, so physical goods being traded around the world. And one of the key areas that we work in is sending of the goods and clearing goods across customs and making sure that the customs clearance is as efficient as possible. And moving more towards the digital space as well, we're starting to digitize a lot of this international trade, i.e. removing a lot of the paperwork that would normally have been there.
Super. So would it be fair to say that when you began projects like this, perhaps the technology was lacking in that industry and you've almost advanced that space?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're still cutting the edge of that. It is the cutting edge side of things in terms of where we're moving into that, because there's not only the political ramifications of various jurisdictions saying they want it done a particular way, but then there's all the technology that wasn't there that we've had to try and create from scratch in terms of being able to understand what it's going to do to identify a product. So if we take, for instance, a physical good, the chairs that we're sitting on, we can identify that it's a chair, but then customs clearance in different parts of the world would treat a chair slightly differently because of the clearance of that. It could be a metal chair, a wooden chair, and so on. And all of those have different tax treatments. And so what we needed to do is to be able to say, there's somebody who's made a particular product, let's say a funky kind of chair, and that chair needs now to be categorized for taxation purposes. And can we therefore have software that does that categorization? And bringing that level of artificial intelligence, if one wants to call it that.
Do you know that's a really interesting point, because to be successful with research and development claims, you need to first of all be advancing your space, advancing the industry, but you also need to be facing something they term technological uncertainty, and that's ultimately looking at the technology and the science that you have available to you in your industry and understanding, okay, how far can we take this? How far is it allowing us to go? And certainly it sounds like what you've been trying to achieve, you've had to push that technology further than it's been before.
Yeah.
You've had to then innovate, think outside the box, build things, trying to mimic human behaviour almost, human decisions.
Correct.
So these, I assume, were the uncertainties that you faced actually getting that right.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the, I guess, feathers in our caps is we take on projects which are a bit like that, because we feel that the kind of projects that we want to take on are the ones that are going to be pushing boundaries. We're going to be pushing in the innovation space.
You're quite adventurous then.
We are
with your
definitely.
Yeah.
Some people say stupid, others people call it brave. But we definitely, yeah. So we definitely push into those. So one of the other aspects that I'm keen to do is to take something which is super complicated and make it super simple, and that we can then be able to push further boundaries in terms of using technology to enhance humans' experiences and to make lives easier for a lot of people and so on.
I mean, yourself, these projects, they go on. They're ever evolving. Even when you're finished it and complete this part, there'll be something next to add on.
Yeah, the continuous improvement is one of the aspects in IT that's always going to be there.
Yeah.
And the pushing of boundaries is always going to be there as well.
Well, that's what HMRC are paying you for, to be pushing those boundaries.
Correct.
So I suppose Naturally, when you're going through your R&D claim process, how do you get prepared each year? Because you're not new to this subject; it is something you do on an annual basis. Do you perhaps, keep a log of your time throughout the year? Do you keep a log of the projects that you work on, or the technical difficulties?
Yeah.
How do you, as a company, make sure that when it comes to your claim time, you're ready to get going?
Well, with any project, when you're doing an IT project, you're going to be managing three things, and if you're not, then you're not going to be successful in any part of the project, right? So you're going to be managing your resources, so your people, you're going to be managing your requirements, what you're trying to build, and so on, and you're going to be managing basically your time. And if you don't manage those three things, you're not managing your project. So as a natural course of doing a project properly, you'll automatically have all the assets that you need to be able to do an R&D claim.
Now, from working together for a number of years, Abdul, I understand that you use a third-party specialist to carry out your claims each year. And it was initially your accountant that brought the idea to your attention. I think for the viewers who have perhaps never done a claim before, or they're wondering, who should I go with, how should I do it, what's your sort of input there? Why did you go down the route of a tax specialist?
I think it was, I had a meeting with my accountant, and we were doing the end of year tax accounts, and I spoke with him, and he said, you're doing some really innovative stuff here. This could attract R&D tax credits. And I said, what are they? And then it was he was educating me. He said, look, I'm not a big specialist in this area. And I know from IT and a lot of other things that when it comes to specialization, you're not going to beat them if you're a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So listening to the accountant and his advice was, look, I know them. You should really have a discussion with them and look into being able to claim back a lot of the investment that we'd already done in these innovative products. There's nothing bad than getting a bad consultant or a bad software development service provider, and you guys provide a service as well. And if we were to go with someone that's inefficient, it just takes them a lot longer. So you might think you're saving money by getting your accountant to do it or do it yourself. Ultimately, it's better to get someone that's a lot more professional and efficient in that area to be able to do it. It pays dividends in the long run.
What's that saying? If you think working with an expert is expensive, try hiring an amateur.
Yes,
Something
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Correct.
For sure.
Yes.
What's the impact been for the company being able to make these claims each year? What has it done for the team?
Yeah, I think it's been very productive from our perspective. We thought it was going to be very, very daunting. And I think the first time when you don't know much, you do look at it and go, oh my goodness, and then all these questions and so on. But again, if you're proficient at what you do, and you've done your project work properly, and you know your requirements, you know your targets, what you're trying to achieve, the conversation can be quite a natural conversation with the tax experts. So people that are going to be facing off to HMRC and putting your claim in are very, very proficient, and they're asking all the right kind of questions. So being able to do that is very good. That then feeds back into having got a claim back. It means that we can reinvest that back into that project that we're doing, and that's a key bit for us, really, to be able to reinvest that money, to be able to continue with the R&D and development that we're doing.
And really just to, again, for those who are watching this or in the IT space, they've perhaps never done an R&D claim before, what advice would you give them if they're thinking, do you know what, I might give this a bash? Well,
I think definitely do it.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, like I mentioned at the top of the conversation, if you've managed to do your project properly, and those three elements are key to doing any project, right? If you've got those in place, then it's not a difficult step to take to be able to move it forwards, right? But ultimately, it's going to come down to the nuts and bolts of having to talk to someone who knows technically what you're claiming for, and being able to provide that, especially if you're on the project. You should be able to do that, really pretty much off the top of your head. And that's a key aspect from our perspective, and I think it's a no-brainer to get it done.
Superb. Well, that's a wonderful way to finish. So thank you so much for your insights there. I really hope it helps others in the IT space, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the outcomes.
Lovely. That's
Thanks.
pleasure, my pleasure.